All right, so with that as background, that's some of what I was saying, which is what some of these people are responding to. So if what is being said about Sanders in the Post is true, I'm assuming the is true, why are you not holding public rallies about Sanders with hard evidence? Evidence of what? Like, everyone knows this, right? Like, it's a matter of public record. What are you talking about? If in fact you have hard evidence, post it or confront Sanders with the hard evidence. If in fact you have any. What, that he screwed everybody over and endorsed the Dems? That's not even controversial. What do you mean if I have evidence of that? Moving on. Somebody, mourning the Bernie having the Palestine supporters thrown out of the rally. Same. My heart can't take it. Bernie's one of the few who even do a little left populism. This whole left populism thing has to go. That's another thing that they call, the social democratic reformism, left populism. This is another big one for secular talk. Kyle Kalinske calls it that a lot too. TYT used to do that. You got to remember, fundamentally, Kyle Kalinske deep down wants to be a cross between Cenk Uygur and Bill Maher. So that'll help you understand him. Next, shitlibs who think that they hold left-wing or progressive politics have been all over the internet yelling at socialists that we need to stop the left infighting and support AOC and Bernie in the fight against fascism. This is a better comment. These tools have absolutely no knowledge of history. These suck dems are the ones who help lead us to the slaughter. Somebody gets it. Do you think there's a way to leverage Bernie and AOC in conversation to sort of persuade people to move left of them? Most people already are left of Bernie and AOC. You don't have to persuade them. Like, that already happened. I mean, most people aren't even at Bernie's level ideologically. I strongly dispute that. I don't want to meet them where they are. That's meeting them at genocide, like you've pointed out. So actually, I meant to get a screenshot of this for the stream. Look up the polls on support for Israel versus Palestine. It has shifted dramatically. So it used to be that 80% of Republicans supported Israel over Palestine, and it was like 50-50 in the Democratic Party. Much more support for Palestine that is on the way to, and then there's like a not sure. So like, that's already happening. You don't even have to like persuade them beyond what's already being done and covered. But is there any sort of good that can come from these oligarchy tours, in your opinion? Is there a way to use Bernie or AOC as a sort of springboard into the politics and ideology that would benefit them? And so again, the answer, I think, is they're doing way more harm than good. They're going to cause a big upsurge of pro-Democratic Party sentiment in organizations we're trying to break away from that, like DSA, from the left in general, from the population in general. They say, I think so. They don't explain how, but you're certainly better versed in this stuff than I am. I'm relatively new to it all. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about that all stream now, but basically, no, I think they're doing more harm than good. What they said was a bunch of platitudes in the rallies. Listen to them. There's a lot of them posted online. There was no hard-hitting analysis there. There was nothing even mildly thought-provoking. So it was it was Blue MAGA light echo chamber in real life with some musical guests. That's what I took it to be. It was not thought-provoking. These were not intellectuals. It was politicians spewing out greatest hits slogans and doing basically covert fundraising. When you can fool people into not even realizing that you're doing fundraising, man, those people have a long way to go. All right, so on Bernie hushing the crowd while the Palestine supporters get thrown out of the rally, this isn't great, but it's not a reason to cancel Bernie. He has been one of the few senators in the country who has consistently voted against arming or supporting Israel. Again, all of that's with lots of qualifications. He's a supporter of Israel at heart, and this is what he does when there's somebody in his presence supporting Palestine, or doing a visual display of supporting Palestine. He's an 82-year-old man. Oh, I see this so many times. He's just an old man, therefore harmless and, I guess, whatever, trying to get through a speech in front of thousands of people. He may not even know what's going on in this clip. Ideological purity tests need to stop, because your politics don't really matter. You know, that's what I hear with ideological purity tests. You know, I mean, you might be part of a system that's basically just going to lead us back into the Democratic Party where we can't do anything, and then they're going to sit and like wring their hands while Trump comes to power again. But like, that's diminishing the power of the left. No, Bernie Sanders is diminishing the power of the left by continually feeding them into a fascist collaborating party. They're not helping in the fight against authoritarianism. If you cancel everyone, this person seems to be obsessed with cancel culture. We know what kind of minds tend to gravitate toward that. Then you have no allies left in the fight. Well, I'm going to stop there because, yeah, Bernie isn't an ally. So, whatever, moving on. We can't have it all, but we should demand it. One, take Bernie and AOC for what they are. Nothing more or less. Okay, well, what I would say that they are, I don't think is what you would say that they are. What I would say that they are is sheepdogs, leading people into a dead-end party that has long been known as a graveyard for social movements. But what do you think they are? They are tools to enact some of our political desires, but they are not going to be perfect tools for all of them. What have they done? I mean, honestly, what have they done? Bernie set out, we're going to totally transform the Democratic Party. We've gotten Trump twice since then, and we got Joe Biden from the Democratic Party. Joe Biden is literally some of the worst the Democratic Party has to offer. So what exactly are we getting out of them? This is true for every politician. Evaluate their value with realism and strategy. Yeah, I am. I think that they are trying to mislead people. And so my strategy is combating that. They are useful voices and tools with power. Useful for what? The Democratic Party is useful if you want to do genocide. Okay? If you want to like cement Republicans' austerity measures, I don't see them as being useful voices for doing lasting things to help the working class or end wars or end the police state or whatever else. Take the utility and use it. What utility are you seeing here? I'm just literally not seeing it. 2, continue to criticize the F out of them. You can write fuck. It's just the comment section. They depend on us, not the other way around. They should listen to us. Well, I'm glad that they just listen to us so much. They listen to us, they obey us, they do what we tell them to do. That's awesome. We can't throw babies out with the bathwater. We can't ignore babies being bombed. Hold these both up high and get kicked out of the rally. It is possible to see the truth this clip reveals and see the value in the momentum of their movement. But wait a minute, is it their movement or is it our movement? Because I think that they're trying to take our movement and lead it to its death. It will not be perfect. And if we wait for perfect, we will fail. I don't see a lot of success right now, so I don't know. Aren't these great? Dude, this is messaging discipline. Bernie is old enough to know that if he runs an anti-billionaire campaign, which is popular, and lets people bring pro-Palestinian stuff to the rally, which is controversial, the media will use that to smear and delegitimization him. The dude has already introduced bills, he's just a dude, in the past 2 weeks to block arms sales to Israel, which is more significant than showing up with a flag to someone else's rally. I saw this a lot in the comments, which is like, why are they disrupting the rally with this message? If you don't think that this movement fundamentally includes pro-Palestinian, anti-genocide support at its core, and you think that that's trying to, quote, hijack the movement, you have this so backwards. Enough of that. It's disturbing. My hope is a lot of the people there will use these rallies as a point to jump off from. Well, you know, according to Bernie, the point they should jump off to is Democratic Party participation, and donations. Having used it for whatever good it has of energizing and getting people together, but understanding its insufficiency and not allow themselves into a controlled opposition. So this person knows exactly where this is heading, but wants to believe it's just not. Into a controlled opposition to later be dropped after election night, like what Dems did with BLM, Medicare for All, etc. Oh, you mean like everything they've ever rallied people on? Why do you think now would be any different? You see why I was having such a hard time recording this? They know the problem, and they're just like, let's pretend it doesn't exist. What is the alternative? Going off the grid isn't just... So calling Bernie Sanders a misleader who just lets people get removed from his rallies for holding up Palestinian flags. That is like, if you're not for that, you're going off the grid, whatever the fuck that means. Isn't direct action just as... So the only thing is direct action then. You're just in the wilderness with a hatchet. Good luck. See you later. What? Like, can we not build something better than this crap? Isn't direct action just as much of an exercise in self-congratulatory political theater? I mean, would you maybe want to try to substantiate, give some reasoning and evidence for why you would even propose that? But, like, no, it isn't. Direct action also isn't, like, just a blanket. Not all direct action is the same. But, so this is it. It's like, well, we can't do anything else. You just got to let him remove, you know, pro-Palestinian people from the rallies. It's fine. Okay, maybe I'm dumb, but Bernie didn't try to silence them. Like, he tried to talk over them for sure. But he stopped talking when it was clear that there was something the audience cared about more. Now, of course, in a perfect world... And just hear the "don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." I think we're going to hear that in the Vanguard clip. Bernie would be shouting at the security to stop. Okay, so you know what he should be doing. And he's not. And you're like still desperate to attack me for posting this instead of him for doing it. But I think saying that he tried to silence the crowd is weird when he easily could just be trying to get through the speech in the time he had. Like, he couldn't take a minute. There's people getting removed from the rally. He doesn't know if they're getting arrested. And like, what's the number one people that Trump is deporting right now? Is people who have spoken in favor of Palestine, who are students on visas and things. Like, there is huge, like, so this is the Democratic Party right now. Their position is both Gaza doesn't matter, and like also, you know, Trump is mainly deporting people talking about Gaza like it's their primary political priority. Which is it? Now, of course, in a perfect world, Bernie would be shouting at the security to stop, but I think he did try to silence the crowd. He's waving his arms at the crowd in a suppressing motion, like, stop making the noise that you're making. And then he could have turned around and be like, hey, leave those people alone. This is a pro-Palestine rally right here. Because the whole crowd was booing their removal. Now, the crowd could have done more, but still. So yeah, anyway, he easily could just be trying to get through the speech in the time he had. Like, he couldn't have taken a minute or two to do this. He's a fucking senator. It's amazing. And there was so many things. Either way, free Palestine. Hope Bernie learns to speak up about it more. Do you get, like, Bernie is trying to drag this movement to the right. He is trying to drag it to the right. He's been trying to drag it to the right since 2015. I can only hope that this was out of Bernie's control. He didn't try to do a fucking thing. What do you mean out of his control? I'm sure that, like, does he have like a brain implant where if he like yells at cops, it like goes off? Honestly, I'm sure that Bernie is on the side of the Palestinians. Based on what? I suspect that just like in the UK, these are police puppets under government control. What? But there was a lot of that too. Like, Bernie's not a senator who can't just tell some police to leave them alone at his rally. Here's a great one. Like, what the fuck their strategy has to be? That's not a sentence. Not everyone is you, my guy. What? Not to mention, probably most people don't understand how anything works. They just mad and someone has to keep them mad while telling them that there is other way, which this too actually do. Another way than what? The Democratic Party? Because no, they're trying to get them to do the Democratic Party. Like, it's going to be different this time. Do you know how many of these comments I have to read? It's terrible. If this opens the door for some sort of unity or working class solidarity, then is it really that awful? Genuine question. Okay, can you give some evidence and reasoning as to why it would do that? And can you maybe anticipate what would the counter arguments be of, like, why would somebody think that that might not happen? And the Democrats cry about freedom of speech. Take a hike. Yeah, okay, I mean, that's true. But then we end with Trump is karma for Gaza. Now, that's some Jimmy Doorbrain shit right there. Trump is not karma for Gaza. Trump is just as bad on the genocide issue. So both are beyond the realm of acceptability on that. But just trying to make Gaza into this, like, karma token, that's fucked up and weird, and don't do that, because it's coming off with that Jimmy Dore just so bitter he will support any kind of horrible garbage. which just opens the door to a lot of bad things. Anyway, there's like way too many of these comments. I'm going to read like one or two more, and this is going to be it. I will continue to support Bernie and AOC, not because they're perfect, far from it, because they're a step in the right direction. Can you justify that at all? Because people always write this shit, they make these claims, and they just don't really like back it up in any way. Non-voters who didn't vote for the Dems in the U.S. 2024 election because Biden's support of the Palestine genocide helped Trump get elected. And as such, we now have the Palestinian genocide with even more support from the U.S. So I guess it didn't matter on that issue. And about 1,000 other problems made far worse. So it's okay to throw Palestine under the bus. And you should not really think about building a movement, which we should have been doing decades ago. And Bernie has had a great opportunity to do in the last decade and consciously chose not to do it and was asked about it and explained his reasoning. And it was a very, very deliberate choice. And Bernie and AOC are harm reduction. No, they're not. Because the threat of fascism never goes away. We were covering that in the quotes before, but it's just common sense. As long as the system stays around and capitalism keeps having its crises of profitability and its fear of workers interrupting business as usual, possibly on a permanent basis, you will always have the threat of fascism. What about the last 50 years and the increasing amounts of neo-fascism from one decade to the next does not make you think that like that's going to be an ongoing problem even with Bernie and AOC out there. This is a system-wide problem. And it's like, again, I can write all this shit in the comments. I'd rather be recording something. I don't have time for this. But again, I'd like to share my pain with you. Here was another one. In 2023, from October to November, there were more than 7,823 pro-Palestinian protests, and during the same time, only 854 pro-Israeli protests. I don't know where they're getting that from. It also sounds like they're saying in just those 2 months, but that's a lot of protests. Anyway, there's only been 11 Fight the Oligarchy rallies so far. Only 11. So why show up to cause division? First of all, I don't even get the numbers thing here of like, what is the point of that? But you're saying that supporting Palestine is causing division? I think you're misunderstanding the composition of this movement. Does the pro-Palestinian crowd not want to beat Trump or MAGA? It's actually a popular sentiment, though. That's one of the things that undercut support for Harris was her. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things: the economy, healthcare, inflation, prices, etc. But like that was one of it. That's not an asset. Going right on that issue is not an asset. Let's not pretend like 7,000 plus average a month isn't a lot, because it is. Not at the cost of division in the face of MAGA and Republicans. Who's causing the division? Because I saw people get removed by security and or police, whatever they were, the crowd booing that, and Bernie Sanders not saying a fucking word. So who's being divisive there? Whose movement is this? Who's setting the tone? Who's saying what the allowed politics are? All right. Last time and a place for everything. It's a fucking political rally. I'm done. Okay. That's enough of that. Wow. Catch up with the chat. Then we're going on. And yes, this is a very long stream. We're catching up with the chat. And then we are doing this React video. Varoufakis is a classic social democrat, reformist, chauvinist, supporting EU imperialism while using progressive phraseology. Yes, that is from our KKE comrade in the chat. Plus, Varoufakis was pushing for the so-called green transition as if it was something that can be done in favor of the people within capitalism. Yeah. As they say, environmentalism without socialism is just gardening. Yeah, this is the Bernie pitchfork stream. Because we need to go beyond protest voting, right? Would love feedback on the dongle idea, the key holder hypothesis, as a starting step. While we build something, do an electoral strike. Make the Dems lose because they failed to do the left platform. Make them own it. Show that they're refusing to do the left at the cost of elections. That it is something that is like what that party is about. After fascism, you get back to liberalism, and then liberals learn nothing. And the people in El Salvador are getting it even, much worse. Yeah. The keyholder movement is the complete opposite of Vosh's let's surrender our only state-sanctioned bargaining chip to Biden, and then we can start pushing him left after that point. Yeah, how did that work, by the way? We were staunchly in opposition to that whole Vosh thing, did a whole video about it back in 2020. Yes, you are only going to be able to influence them from the outside. And at the same time, you build your own independent power up. But you do not let yourself get captured, then influence them. You just lost your leverage. You have to pull out. That's where you start building leverage. And again, that's just a step toward building ourselves up. That's what you do in the meantime. Eventually, you get big enough to take on the old man, so to speak. Marxism, Leninism, dongle thought. Beauty is in the vote of the withholders. There we go. I'll endorse that. Donglism. Don't dongle me, bro. That'll be the Dems soon enough. I won't vote third party because no one votes third party is circular logic. I know. And yet somehow people keep failing to see that. It's like the most obvious thing in the universe. And like, okay, while you build that party up, you're going to lose some elections. It's okay, because you know what? You were losing half of them anyway, with even the party that you believe is somewhat closer to your interests, whichever party that is. You're losing half the elections anyway. Like, but see, the Dems have got this where we have to win every election. It's the end of democracy. And it's like, look, you're losing anyway. It doesn't matter, no matter how much you say that. And anyway, it's time to have a decent platform. They're never going to do it on their own. And the only ones who reliably can fight for workers is we workers ourselves. We're the only ones who can actually fight for ourselves. The Democrats are only going to do it under extreme duress. And how do you apply that duress? Not from within. Not from within. They don't give a shit. Okay? Have you noticed they don't care? Have you fucking noticed they don't care? They don't care. They don't care. Okay? You have to make them care by force. And you start that by withholding in an organized way with a set of demands. Amazing. This is like, I've never actually heard somebody bringing this up, but it's like one of the most obvious, because we never get past the thing of like, third parties can't win, done, over and off, But yeah, you're gonna not win the elections at first. It's not even about elections in the end, because again, the entire capitalist government, they will get rid of elections if they feel threatened by elections. So like, you can't just think in terms of that. But like building power at the grassroots level, again, 5% of it should be electoralism, 95% of it should be community organizing. But when the elections do come up, it is an opportunity to gain leverage and part of the narrative and prominence and win people over to building an independent entity, which is not part of a genocidal imperialist political party. Again, it is happening where people are like, I just want to make the Dems lose because they're not doing the things they need to do. But take that and organize it, shape it up, get all the, there were signs that PSL and the Greens, and I would love to see like better parties, but like the parties that are there currently, they were kind of, and the Cornel West campaign, those three were coordinating. They're like, we're not on the ballot in this state, so we're endorsing this other left candidate, which isn't going to win anyway, so we might as well endorse them. And they were starting to coordinate. Okay, I still think we need to do better than all these parties, but we're only going to do that with like a lot more participation and, improving the quality of the leadership and the struggle. But again, let's take that. I just want to see the Dems fucking lose because they denied me healthcare or whatever because they did a genocide. Like, these are some of the hot button issues right now. We already have that sentiment. So organize it. And again, I'll call it the keyholder movement. One of the arguments that's been held up in favor of the first past the post and the two-party electoral system is that the only two sensible, quote unquote, parties can hold power, and extremists like Trump couldn't possibly gain power, but that is nonsense, as shown by, actual evidence now. Do you think mandatory voting could help? Not particularly. It's not something I've really focused on. I think the main problem is trying to pry people away from the Democrats. That is the main problem. Like, it doesn't matter if everyone was required to vote, then they all voted Democrat. it just like that's not the fix. We need to get people out of that party. That is the main problem. We need to build an independent workers' party that doesn't take the corporate money and has uh, and so there's a lot that has to, and then that's not even getting into the need for a vanguard party that operates on democratic centralism. But I think at this point, we can't even, like, the masses are not even at a point where they're like seeing the obvious need to organize independently of the Democrats and the discipline and the just stick with itness to do that through thick and thin. I think, elevating the democratic centralism is probably, they won't see the need for that till down the line, further down the line. But that's another thing is like, this is just step one, getting people out of the fucking arms of their abuser. Step two is like doing, getting a vanguard party going using democratic centralism so that it can't be, well, just so that it's governed effectively. Yeah, the Democrats do still get paid when they lose. This would be trying to have the narrative that making them. There's other factors. There is the prestige and shame factor of they're the party of science and they're the party of whatever the fuck they're claiming to be the party of. We need to stick it to them in every possible way that they are not that and peel off the people who can be organized, into something else. Again, Bernie had the golden opportunity to do this the easy way in one big shot, get critical mass in one shot. July 2016, August 2016. Didn't do it. Now we're back to like, who has the juice to get that going? And again, he's using his power for evil, going around the country, rallying people for the Democrats. And then AOC's pulling in record fundraising hauls, 9.6 million in the first quarter. And that's what this is all about. But yeah, I mean, they don't mind losing, but you have to make them lose in a way that they do mind. You know what I mean? They don't mind losing when it looks like they ran a good, honest race. If you make it clear they lost because they refused to do like really reasonable demands, that mass traction economic demands that are good for the majority, like overwhelming majority of the population, and they refuse to do them, and that's why they lost, that's not an honorable loss that they can like hang their head high and still claim to be the like reasonable underdog. You know what I mean? So it's undercutting that. Oh, okay. So we're at the part where I was reading the comments now. This post screams of realpolitik BS. People are just laughing at these comments. Did I miss the Sockdom gang? No, we're about to start it. They're going to de-atomize an old man? The delegitimization him. Yeah. Put him in the delegitimization chamber. I don't know where that came from. Can somebody who's good at such things make, I'm picturing something like, just like a, 6.5 foot high, human-sized, like glass, narrow dome, like just like very vertical, so just big enough for like an adult human to stand up in. Anyway, it's the delegitimization chamber. Then we're gonna save that. Henry David Thoreau really did permanent psychological damage to the American psyche. Any political action that challenges the status quo immediately defaults to hyper-individualistic, going off the grid nonsense, rather than collective organizing and activism. Well, we're still basically stuck in 1776 ideologically. I mean, that's the problem with this country, is the politics are like 18th century. There's some modern aspects, but it's like fundamentally people still think that like the U.S. bourgeois revolution is like still revolutionary today. So yeah, I mean, it's so far behind. Like Lenin was 100 years ago. It's so ironic when people are like, oh, you're reading some old dead guy. Lenin 100 years ago is such a revolutionary updating of where the average U.S. American's head is at in terms of politics and the assumptions that they're carrying around. So yeah, this commenter is so damn lost. Why would Bernie care about the clock? The mental gymnastics on display in these comments you're sharing is astounding. I have like at least half a dozen more, and those are just the ones that I screenshotted. There were a bunch of people like, oh, it must have been out of his control. Yeah, it must have been. He's only a senator. These comments are pain. Yeah. Yeah, let's just a brief round of applause for the mods. I know Atlas was here before. We seem to have a troll free stream for the most part, so that's good. But yeah, no, moderating is actually there were articles about how low wage workers in Africa get stuck moderating a lot of the Facebook comments, and like you know the Facebook comments you see, the ones that get through, and they have to read the ones that didn't even rise to that level. You definitely take psychic damage 100%. It honestly just lowers your faith in humanity. Like, how can people be this crude and just this twisted? It's just wild, just really vile. I will continue to support Bernie and AOC, not because they're perfect, far from it, but because they're a step in the right direction. Cool. Do you support Stalin and Mao on the same basis? Yeah, I like having these conversations too. I never would have been able to get through this without doing it on stream. Never. So if you're listening to this stream and you weren't, if you're listening to this like in a recording after the fact, please thank the the chat regulars, because this would not have happened. I always thank the participants in the chat for helping to make it what it is. That they get an extra thanks today. Guys, we have to get permission to protest. That is a crazy emoji. What is that? It's an orc. Oh yeah, for people who are interested, and I might read an article about this. I mentioned more the Howie Hawkins eco-socialist wing of the Green Party. There is a zine, the New Green Horizons. I'll see if I can post a link to that. Butch Ware running for California governor. I think he's a terrible. I did not like at all what I saw from Butch Ware in the vice presidential race, and I don't know why anybody would continue to elevate him running for anything else.